Who know?
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to anyone listening now and in the future. Welcome back to the Sage Dragon Book Show. I'm your host, Jaquana. It's brought to you by The Real HD. For anyone new, this show is all about books that I have read. I read vast books on various topics, from self help to historical fiction. Today, we are going to discuss a couple of wellness reads, and this is going to be a series. I read a lot on health and wellness, and these two books are worth discussing. If you are new to my channel, welcome. And please subscribe to Sage Dragon Book Show. I'm on YouTube and all that, all that jazz. But let's get into today's discussion. So this series is called Books to Empower Your Well-Being Journey, and we're gonna discuss two very different books. One is more for kind of like the individual well-being journey, and another one is individual hood wellness, but it also can help with thinking about the wellness of family and community. So I love this mashup, and I'm really hoping to get some great discussion around it. First off, we always like to have a segment where we talk about any news of the week. So what we got this week for the segment? There's a new book by Alexander McCall Smith. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this series. It's called the Number One Ladies Detective Agency novel. It came out in, oh my gosh, I don't even remember. I used to read these books in the 2000s, and I didn't even realize they were still being made. But they are by this writer, Alexander Smith, and it's about a woman in Botswana who, after journalism school, becomes a detective. And she solves all of these mysteries and crimes, but it also brings in other characters. Was it Showtime that did the show with Jill Scott? And she starred in it as Precious, who was the woman who was in charge of the agency. Unfortunately, the person who made the show ended up passing away, and they weren't able to keep the show going. I think it only had maybe one or two seasons, but the books are still going. So if anyone is interested in a good read, those are really good, good books. Anybody out there ever heard of that series? Okay.
I
So,
second that. I second
mhm,
that. Books are fire. Shows are fire. Everything about that
mhm.
series is great. Check it out.
Yeah, it's really good. I'm there's a whole bookstagram world now that didn't exist when I was a reader back in the early 2000s. And I don't really see anyone posting about those books. It's so many types of books now, but those are still good. And I believe they still have a really good fan base because I found it on this page, a book trip, which I like to go to. All right, so let's get into today's discussion because I'm really excited about it. A couple of months ago, I stumbled upon this book called Calm Your Mind with Food, a revolutionary guide to controlling your anxiety in the library. It's like, that sounds interesting. So I took it out. And then I also saw online this book, Hood Wellness, Tales of Communal Care from People Who Drowned in Dry Land. And I was like, that title and the cover looks, it drew me in. And I started researching and looking at posts about it. And I was like, I want to read this. So I read that book and thought this was a great pairing. So I'm going to get into the nutrition book first, and then we'll go into hood wellness. So first off, calm your mind with food, a revolutionary guide to controlling your anxiety. It's written by Dr. Uma Naidoo, and she is a physician. She calls herself it's a trifecta because she is a doctor of psychiatry from Harvard University. She's also an instructor at the Cambridge School of Culinary Arts, and she's also a chef. That is really noteworthy. When I worked at the Center for Community Health years ago, one of my leaders was was, well, she retired, Dr. Nana Bennett, but she used to talk to us a lot about how most physicians in the United States don't learn about nutrition, and it's still a thing. And because so much of our health is related to our nutrition, that um, it's great to have a doctor of psychiatry also be such an expert in nutrition and be able to make that link. And that was why I was so passionate about this. I sent this book to a number of my colleagues and suggested that they read it, especially those that are working in the mental health field. Because similar to what we when we talk about how much we don't know about like history and different parts of history, I feel that way about well-being. There's so much I learned in reading this book. So the doctor has a huge profile, and if you look her up, you can go on her website and see more about her background and how she connects these all. So the book is divided into three categories. The first section gets into the problem. She talks about the anxiety epidemic. She gives a lot of statistics that probably won't surprise us. And what I really gained from, which I would say is the new information, excuse me, is the connection between anxiety and the gut inflammation and metabolism. That's where I would say this book is worth purchasing or taking out in the library, because she gets really specific about how much, we remember these terms like my gut tells me this and I should have gone with my gut. We know, and we're programmed to know that, or if you get nervous, there's an issue with digestion. So we know that there's a connection there, but she goes deeper in the science of how much what is going on in your gut um, impacts your mental state, especially how nervous you may be feeling, as well as conditions like depression, schizophrenia. All of that is linked so much to the body. Then she also provides linkages to how eating and our diets and the inflammation that we experience also affects your mental health, as well as the metabolism. The second part of the book, she gets into a solution, which is, in part, she explains macro and micronutrients and how macros, those fats, the carbohydrates, the protein you take in, and then the micronutrients like, the vitamins and minerals that we need or the lack thereof, and how it relates to your anxiety. She includes a lot of case studies, which I appreciated, like patients that she treated. And because she's a medical doctor, it's not that she's against subscribing medication, but she always starts with the diet. And I was like, wow, that's a very revolutionary way of treating people nowadays, because we do as a society tend to default just to the, you know, medications and pills. So she would really look at her client. She talked about a client that came in, and how they were struggling with intense anxiety, and they had a lot of sugar in their diet. You hear quite a bit in this book about how harmful sugar is, which we hear that, and we know that, like, things like sugar, fried foods, certain dairy, and foods like that, we know that they cause things like diabetes, the physical ailments. But I was really shocked to hear how much these things can cause um, your nervous system and your brain to react and cause really high levels of anxiety, which can be tested. And then the last section is protocol, where she walks you through, if you want to create a plan for yourself on cleaning up your diet to address your anxiety. She provides a protocol, nutrition plan, and then finally some recipes. And recipes look really good that you can incorporate into your diet. And I got some videos that I'll show later on that, put all of this together. The other thing that I really appreciated about the book was how she wove her personal connection. She shared an experience that she had. She lives in the United States now, but she grew up under the apartheid system in South Africa. And um, I read another book about on emotional well-being by her name is Susan David, I believe. She's also Harvard trained, and she wrote this really good book called Emotional Agility. She talked about the legacy of, as a white woman living under apartheid. Dr. Uma Nato is Indian, and she said that the apartheid system also heavily discriminated against Indians. And even though she was able to go to college and achieve so much in her life, and, Ivy League, she was traumatized by that experience, and she didn't realize how much the system of making a person feel inferior was bubbling up in her adult life, and it caused the anxiety and the metabolic struggles. And it reminded me of the work that Joy DeGruy has done in post traumatic slave disorder, and really expressing how much the legacy of slavery, Jim Crow, the new Jim Crow, and that trauma, and how it's impacted Black Americans, and how we have to free ourselves from that trauma and work through it. We can't just push it aside, because even if you achieve and do all these great things, you're impacted by that messaging and all of the, the ways that it has the horror, that it caused. And the horror is different. It's not like the 1950s where you're being hosed to death, but now the horror is things like food apartheid, where there's certain neighborhoods where you just can't get healthy food, or your children can't go outside to play. So I started thinking a lot about how it's not just us eating, it's also dealing with the things that impact us as well. So I'm going to stop there. Any people out there with some comments? All right, I'll keep going then. So yeah, has statistics as of October 22nd, October 22. 79% of adults said the state of mental health in U.S. was a public health emergency. So there's a huge acknowledgement about the fact that mental health is a real problem. 40 million Americans suffer from anxiety each year. There's an increase among children and teens. Another book that I covered this year that was really good was called The Anxious Generation. And look that one up. It gets into how um, the combination of technology, social media, the ways in which we've raised our children over the last 2 decades, and a host of other issues have caused modern day children in the Western world to have really high levels of anxiety. And then it also outlines some solutions. So we know that children and teens are a problem, but again, that book doesn't talk about the nutrition piece. It talks about, taking the technology and how we need to improve our tech behaviors, which we do, but it doesn't really get into how we might be feeding our kids sugar or fried foods or certain oils that they're eating, or simply that they're not getting enough vitamin B12, and how that impacts the serotonin levels that cause the anxiety. So when you start to really see how all of this is connected, we realize how imperative it is for us to improve our nutrition. She gets into on pages 19 and 20. She defines fear and anxiety. Fear is a subset of a broader category of physiological reactions called the stress response in everyday life. So, fear is like, and we all have fear, flight or fight, those normal biological and emotional reactions. So, fear is like intrinsic. There's worrying about a work issue that you're working on, and you want to be write that report correct or issue that meal correct if you're a restaurant worker. If you're a younger person, and maybe worrying about a test, or if you're going to pass your classes or get into, pass your driver's test. And then that's the internal fear. And then there's extrinsic stress, like driving through traffic, or going on the subway. Or yesterday I was walking from the library, and a dog ran up and attacked me. I didn't get hurt or anything, but I had to try to not be too fearful in the situation, because animals can sense that and it can throw them off even more. So, and then the second part of my walk, because it was slippery and icy out, I really almost took a spill. Didn't, thankfully, but I was like, okay, that's my cue to wrap up the walking for today. So, we all have these fears that we're dealing with daily. Then there's anxiety. Anxiety is concerned with the future. It's anticipating potential threats that have not materialized. And that's part of what the author is offering us, a tool with the information in this book. As we talked about in the Michelle Obama book that I reviewed, because she's very transparent about the anxiety that she dealt with in the book, The Light We Carry. Some anxiety is helpful. We do need anxiety in our lives because it might be a good nudge. You're anxious about something financial, health wise. It might be even a family member. That anxiety might be the nudge you need to check on that family member, or to make sure that you're living within a proper budget. So anxiety can be a good source. It's when it gets out of whack and it paralyzes people, or it causes them to be extra anxious, where it becomes destructive and disruptive to your life. So I'd have a clip here that I want to show that gets into more of what the book shows. So can we show that, please? Hey, Angel. Right on time.
Hi there. Thank you.
Before we oh, okay, sure. Are you showing the video, HD?
You were saying something, so
Yeah,
I
I
stopped it.
wanted to, now that Angel's on, I wanted to stop and ask her to speak a little bit more about what um, I talked about so far. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Hi there, everyone. Thank you, Shaquana, so much for hosting. I saw your posting for the book this week, and I thought, oh gosh, that's something I would love to be a part of chatting about. I'm sorry I can't come on camera at the moment.
Oh, no
However,
problem.
what you just said is so key. It's understanding the difference between, I think you were referring to eustress
Mhm.
versus stress, like eustress, EUSTRESS. My understanding is the good stress that makes us alert to our surroundings and alert to things that are more on the subconscious level and yanking us into action. So all stress is not bad stress, but as you said, and all anxiety is not bad anxiety. It's just when we get, when it runs away from us, when it gets away from us like a horse out of the barn. It makes me think about the concept. I don't know if you've reviewed this year, but the concept of emotional regulation. It's one thing to have emotional intelligence, but it's another thing to be able to regulate our emotions and regulate the anxiety. So this is the perfect time of the year to, I think, be talking about this because there's so much going on. And, this is, we're operating outside of the season. This is the season to rest. But at the same time, we're being yanked into so many different directions and conversations and things. So thank you for highlighting that for listeners.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for right, because as you were saying, that you stress and that distress. Because a lot of times people will say, I'm stressed and will vilify stress. And we need stress, but we need, more of a balance. And
Yes.
what was so um what I really appreciated about this book is how much the author is providing um, data and information on the food and how certain foods are really causing more anxiety and how certain foods can help with that. And I wish that we could really bring this message to the United States, to the world more, that we have to really look at our diets and incorporate it along with the other modalities of medicine and talk therapy, but we have to look at things like I think I have a clip that shows how much she had this stat that 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut, in the microbiome. So if our gut and our microbiome isn't in being fortified with like those fermented foods, you're not getting the serotonin you need to help you regulate your anxiety. And I know a lot of people that have high anxiety and have high stomach issues. And
Yes.
this is a quote that I lifted out of the book. Serotonin is inhibitory neurotransmitter. It helps calm your nerves, soothing them out of a frenzy state. Serotonin is thought to be one of the most crucial brain chemicals when it comes to anxiety. The most common type of drug prescribed to fight anxiety and depression is the SSRI, which increases levels of serotonin. While serotonin plays a key role in your mood and emotions, 95% of your body's serotonin is produced in the gut, most of which stays in your digestive tract to help the ENS regulate digestion. And I was like, wow, that was really profound because we hear so much about the medication part, And I just read another book, totally fiction, but it was of mental health. It was about mental health. It was called 72-Hour Hold. And the mother was really concerned that her daughter was getting a lot of medication and that it was going to cause weight gain and dehydration. And I was like, wow, you don't hear as much about the fact that when you take the mental health medications, it can cause a lot of health problems. I mean, we hear the side effects. So
Yes,
think about that, Angel.
yes. So one of the things, and I don't want to take up too much time, but one of the things, an emerging and exciting field of medicine right now is nutritional neuropsychiatry,
Mhm.
functional medicine, if it may sound more familiar to listeners. But the most exciting development, I think, in the last 10 years is the understanding that food is mood. This isn't just a snappy little trendy thing. There's science behind this. And she's absolutely right that 90% or so, as she says, 95% is produced in the gut. We have to have certain enzymes, we have to have certain cofactors to be able to produce serotonin in the first place. You may know something called tryptophan. Tryptophan is what is an enzyme that we get from eating something called turkey, which is why after you eat a big turkey meal at Thanksgiving, you sit back and you say, oh my gosh, I'm so tired. Well, you actually relax because tryptophan then turns into 5-HTP, and then 5-HTP turns into serotonin. So if you were to go to the drugstore, or not the drugstore, but the supplement store, vitamin shop, whatever, and you saw on the shelf 5-HTP, that is the precursor to serotonin. So rather than taking medications, there are options for taking supplements that will allow your body to produce the thing that you would be getting through a prescription medication. Now, of course, this is not medical advice for any listener, but the point is that she's absolutely right. Food is mood, and nutritional psychiatry is a fascinating, fascinating field of science. We also know that we need cofactors. If there's nothing else that I give my patients, I give them methylated vitamin B. B as in boy. And the reason for that is because the B vitamins are crucial for mental health, cognitive well being. You need those in order to produce these things, these serotonin, the GABA, all of those other things in the brain. So we're understanding now that if people are nutritionally deficient, you have to fix that.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're just putting a band-aid on the situation. Now, I'm not anti-medication because I'll prescribe anything that a patient needs, but I also think that we do a major disservice to our patients when we don't understand that diet also has to be addressed. And I am so excited that you're bringing this to your audience and sharing this information because this is within a patient's control, right? You can't control the prescription and all these other things, but we can change the things that we eat. We can be more aware of what nutritional deficiencies we have. When we go into the doctor's appointment, we can ask for nutritional testing and or get a referral to a dietitian who can. There are so many things that are within our locus of control now that were not. And this applies also to schizophrenia. There are lots and lots of research studies that have shown deficiencies in certain cofactors and enzymes that are linked to schizophrenia and schizophrenia like symptoms. This is anxiety, this is depression, this is ADHD and ADD. And I'm speaking from experience that I do this work every day. When I see my patients, one of the first things I ask, whether it's ADD or ADHD, tell me a little bit more about, and I don't use the word diet because people don't like that word, but tell me a little bit more about some of the foods you eat. What's your typical meal plan like during the week? and we go from there. And so we can marry the two things together. We can prescribe, but we can also educate our patients and our communities, our children, about how to create a more healthy, robust gut microbiome for the sheer purpose of establishing better mental health.
Oh, wow. Absolutely. I mean, and I work at a health plan, and I'm just thinking about there's still so much room for this message to be out there, because it seems like, unfortunately, Angel, I had mentioned in the beginning that when I used to work at the Center for Community Health, my leader, who was a physician, talked about how a majority of clinicians, medical doctors, don't get that training in medical school on the nutrition. She said they only take one course. The in this um, video, I think the doctor said 20% of physicians are getting nutrition training. So I'm worried that if patients are only seeing clinicians who aren't as experienced as you are, that have that integrative focus, it's a huge miss for
Yes.
well-being, because they're getting the medication and those types of treatments. But I mean, I even know people personally who are struggling with their mental health, and they eat poorly, and there's no connection there for them. They know about they know that eating might be causing the weight or the diabetes precursors, but I don't know if the public is really understanding how important it is to our mental. So I just want us to get this word out there more.
You are so right, Shaquana. They don't know. Uh, I and I know that you've done extensive work and study around heart health, cardiovascular health, women's health. I mean, you've been in this line of work for a long, long time. And you and I have always come back to the food connection. It applies to everything. And it's a travesty that, medical providers do not receive more nutritional education. And I think that the greater harm, I think, is in just not many not having the willingness to say, I am not educationally prepared in that area, but here, let me give you a referral
Mhm.
to a dietitian. Let me give you
Yeah.
a referral to a nutritionist. I am not asking physicians to go out and do extensive study in an area that they're not interested in having expertise. What
Mhm.
I'm asking them to do is to recognize that there are many professionals on this healthcare team,
Mhm.
yourself included in the field of public health, that listen, folks can carry the ball from here. You've done your part as a physician. Please do pass the ball and tell your newly diabetic patient to go and see a dietitian. Tell
Mhm.
your pre-diabetic patient, I want you to go see a dietitian. Tell your person who is borderline hypertensive, I want you to go see a dietitian. I just think that the dietitian and those who are in the public health field are just not being recognized as a crucial part of this picture,
Mhm.
especially in the area of mental health. And I also want therapists too to
Yeah.
recognize. Listen, we're doing this therapy every week. We're unpacking how this divorce feels for you, or how this, your children's whatever is feeling for you. But it might be time to think about medication or other options. Have you thought about your role in, the role of a nutritionist to help you with some of the lifestyle factors? Like, we all have to sort of like be aware of these intersections and be willing to refer our patients and clients to the places where they can get more assistance. We can't all do everything. None of
Exactly.
us can do everything, you
Yes,
know.
it's a
Hmm.
team effort. It's an interdisciplinary effort. And if we only have a society where we hold maybe the doctor in as the highest, it it disrupts things. I think we should look at it as we need the physicians, we need our nutritionists and therapists, our physical fitness people, um, and lay people to help us in our well-being. It looks like we
Yes.
have either a question or a comment. Can you show that? Sylvia here. Great show combining overeating with overwhelming stress. Trying to achieve holiday perfection for family is the ideal formula for bodily chaos. It's so hard to navigate health during the season. That's a good segue because I have clips that this doctor has an approach for that. So can we show some of the clips, please, at this time? Thank you, Sylvia.
Many. What if the foods you eat could make the difference between a season of calm or chaos? From fiber rich fruits and vegetables to omega 3 packed fish, the connection between diet and mental health is more powerful than ever. Joining us now is the author of Calm Your Mind with Food, Dr. Uma Naito. Doctor, thank you so much for joining me.
And thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Now, what inspired your focus on the connection between food and mental health?
I just felt that it was a missing link because we were talking about medications that we are prescribing, which are very important and life saving for many, but they also come with side effects. So, why not also talk about your lifestyle, your sleep, your hydration, your activity and exercise, as well as what you eat, which is a foundation. And when our nutrition is poor, it can lead to many different diseases, both in mental health, physical health, and so much more.
Now, how does inflammation impact anxiety and depression, and what role does food play in reducing it?
So inflammation, we're talking about the inflammation in organs like the gut microbiome, where, if we're eating a diet of ultra processed foods and junk foods and fast foods and candy, not of the standard American diet which we're used to eating, those foods unfortunately really cause inflammation in the gut. When you have inflammation in the gut, you see the gut and brain are connected from before we are born. They arise from the exact same cells in the human embryo, and then they divide apart to form two organs and then are connected by the 10th cranial nerve, the vagus nerve. So when we eat in a way that affects one organ, it automatically affects the other. It just may take a little bit of time. So when we eat what I call pro-inflammatory foods or foods that are less healthy for us, this drives inflammation in the gut. It affects the gut microbes, the gut microbiome, and it leads to inflammation over time in the brain. All of this drives mental health symptoms. In fact, in conditions like depression, anxiety, cognitive disorders, and more, that underlying inflammation is actually thought to be more of a driving force now that we understand these pathways better.
Now, you mentioned, American diet, and I can definitely see when we go outside, it is very hard to avoid some of these foods. What are some
Yes.
practical ways to include fiber rich foods in our daily meals to improve our gut health and mood?
That's a great question. So it is hard to avoid those foods. And all we're saying is try to cut back, try to eat with awareness and mindfulness. But the first thing to fill up on fiber-rich food is look at all the colors on this table. Vegetables, fruit, berries, all of these foods have different colors in them. And the colors, as well as fiber, are really important for our gut microbiome. Whole foods have fiber: vegetables, fruit, beans, nuts, seeds, legumes, and whole grains. But things like certain proteins, like animal and seafood proteins, don't actually contain fiber. So whatever you eat as your protein source, make sure you're filling up on those vegetables, leafy greens, your peppers, your tomatoes. All of that becomes critical. But also, if you're trying to maintain a sense of calm over the holidays, those fiber-filled foods will also help you.
Yeah, so I have another clip where she puts more, um, gives more detail on it. But what was the other? Hold on. Um, Oh, yes. So she provided the link, as we discussed, between anxiety, but anxiety is also associated with having a higher LDL and lower HDLs, which are our cholesterol levels. The book also gets into the bi directional relationship between depression and type 2 diabetes and high cortisol levels linked to weight gain and body fat. Do we have any more comments out there now before we show the second clip?
No, I'll put them up as they come.
Okay. All right. So can we show that second clip? She gives more detail on how you can implement healthier eating to help your nerves.
Okay.
There's a concept kind of titled calms. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that and how does it guide food choices for reducing stress?
So in my book, I talk about an anti-anxiety shopping list, a protocol that's easy to follow, as well as recipes. So one of the quick tips from the book is a mnemonic called CALMS, CALMS, just to try to think on the go about foods I want you to be thinking about adding in this holiday. The first C is for citrus. So, mandarins, oranges, lemons, limes. These citrus fruit give us vitamin C, critically important as something that we need to have in our body to keep a calm mind. The other C is for extra dark natural chocolate. Now we're talking about 70 or 75% of dark, and we're not talking about a candy bar, but these are great for you to help ease your anxiety over time. A little square goes a long way, and it's delicious with a piece of citrus fruit actually. Um, Another C is for chickpeas. Buy them canned or whole, and if you buy the canned, rinse them out and use them. Great source of fiber, great source of plant-based protein, and also has tryptophan in it. So all of these three is super important. Vitamin C, chocolate, and chocolate, and the citrus fruit. So then we move to A. The A is for the anthocyanins, which is this beautiful blue color that is imparted to blueberries. So I'm going to suggest you add in a quarter cup of blueberries to your day. Also great for fiber and other nutrients that you need, and a great snack on the go. The second A is for ashwagandha. Now, ashwagandha is an ancient Ayurvedic herb, and Kibin, it doesn't taste good. It's kind of bitter. So I'm going to suggest you to consider a powder supplement or a pill supplement. Make sure that you tell your doctor because they will know other medications you're taking as well. But ashwagandha has a good amount of evidence to help ease anxiety. Then we go on to L, and the L is for liquid. I'm going to suggest you make sure that you're drinking water, refill your water bottle at the mall, have a sustainable water bottle in the car so that you're hydrating. Because when you're dehydrated, you don't realize you actually feel much more anxious. So it's an easy tip that we can fix. Another way is tea. A passion flower tea is very calming to the mind and body. So it's another thing to try. Then the M is for more omega 3s, which you mentioned earlier, Kevin, as well as magnesium. A lot of Americans don't get enough magnesium in their diet. Magnesium you can get from avocados, beans, legumes, and other foods, but more omega 3s you can get from salmon. So this is canned salmon. But I want you to think about whether you can get it into your seafood market, but canned also contains the omega 3s. It's just an option depending on what you eat and where you live. Another source of short chain omega 3s are flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts. So you can have those as well to up your game for omega 3s. The M, we finished the M and now we're going on to S. S is spices and herbs. And the spices and herbs here are very easy because, we're using so many fresh herbs for Thanksgiving. Leaning into spices is a great way to go because they don't have many calories, if any at all. And they flavor up our food, but they're rich in antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties that help across the board. So, add some turmeric with a pinch of black pepper to a soup, a smoothie, or a tea. Turmeric is this bright yellow spice, and have that as a way to help ease your anxiety over time.
And I love that we're having this conversation now because, as mentioned, we are coming up on the holiday season where, we tend to eat a lot with our family and our friends. How can we,
So I'll stop there. And if you want to see the whole video, you can type in calm your mind with foods, and BronxNet public television showed that great video. So Sylvia, I hope that helps you. I'm thinking of Calm. This book has helped me to identify, like, I'm on a healthy eating journey. I call it that because, I've been trying to eat healthy throughout my life. But, as I'm a woman, and my needs at 20 are different now than almost 50. Men out there, it's the same thing. So we got to constantly be thinking about what we need. And it was helping me to identify areas of my diet that I think I need to, clean up. There's a section in the book where she talks about bioactives and um, bioactives and herbal medicine, and different, she talked about chocolate, pure dark chocolate, different herbs and spices that we can be incorporating in it. I think I would say the takeaway is, as Angel had mentioned, there are professionals out here that are knowledgeable about how you can integrate food and use it for your healing. So if you have a medical provider who isn't as familiar with that, I suggest I'm not saying you have to abandon them, but why don't you team up with someone who does? And the physician hopefully will be supportive of it too. I also hope this administration is claiming, they want to make America healthy again. And I'm not going to get into all of that because that's a whole nother episode. But I hope that there continues to be billing and policy practices. I talk about this a lot, which is part of the reason why I wanted to go into health plans, to help us shape policies that will help people have access to the nutrition services. Because it's not just about being able to go to the doctor. You need to clean your diet up, because if you are anxious and you have mental problems and you're taking the medicine and you're doing the right things, you're going to therapy, maybe you're even exercising and you're still feeling it, it could be some mineral deficiency or vitamin deficiency. The physician that wrote the book, she says she emphasizes testing. So she's not going to just say everyone go out and take B12, but more than likely, many of us are deficient in B12, vitamin D. I'm living way up in the tundra. I probably have a vitamin D deficiency. It's really cold. I've been going out on my walks, but we're not getting those types of tests. I know where most of us aren't, even those of us that are going to the doctor, which some of us aren't even doing that. So we got to get primary care. So I just want to encourage you all out there, now and in the future, to think about your health more broadly. There's more information out there that it's a puzzle. It's not just the same information we're seeing. We need a team to help us. What changes can you make to your diet to support your mental health? Anyone want to share?
Shaquana, I'd like to share.
Yes.
Even as a healthcare provider, some people would say, "Oh, you know, you know all the things," but I tell you, knowing and doing are two different things. And I can tell you that, as you mentioned, getting closer to 50 or over 50, skipping meals is not the answer. A lot of times we think with, when we want to lose weight or things like this, we need to cut the carbs or cut this or cut that. And certainly skipping meals is definitely not the answer. So I think for me, I'm in a slow down mode. Slow down, be intentional. Make sure you pack some snacks, for the afternoon, some nuts, some fruits. As she said, a handful of blueberries can go a long way. You'd be surprised some of these afternoon cravings and, uh, you know, um, that afternoon fatigue that you can solve, brain fatigue that you can solve by just having a protein rich snack. And that 70% cacao, dark chocolate or cacao is real medicine. And when people hear dark chocolate, chocolate, but it's
Yeah.
not the milk chocolate that we're thinking of at the, in the Hershey bar. It really is dark chocolate. It's an acquired taste because you're not used to not
Yeah.
having that sweetened milk chocolate. But I'll tell you, it goes a long way. So for me, it's being a little bit more mindful in the evening to set myself up for success the next day by having those snacks and not running out the door, saying, oh gosh, it's going to get dark early. I want to get started early. A good day starts the night before. It really, truly does. It really does. So I know for me that's going to be one of the changes. I'm gonna lock in, as we say, on my evening routine to set myself up better for the next day.
Amen to all of that. It's true. We have to plan, especially because unfortunately our culture is not set up. Like way back in 2012, there was a grant I was working on. It was a community transformation grant. The goal of it was, the byline was, we want to make the healthy choice the easier choice. So all these communities around the country got this funding, and we were supposed to make these environmental changes. The administration at the time, the Republican administration, didn't like it. They said we were trying to tell people how to eat.
Oh,
So that was the narrative they put out. And guess what? They yanked the grant. It was
oh,
part of the Affordable Care Act. It was right in the legislation. And it was why I left. I was in part of one department and I left that department, which was non-grant funded. And this was supposed to be a 5-year initiative. And we were making headway. We were getting partnerships with food systems and healthcare systems because we wanted to put like clinical and community linkages together. And they didn't like it. Now, it's 2025 and you have RFK, and you have now even individuals in MAGA who are health conscious. And some of the things that we were trying to promote back then that was associated
right.
with Michelle Obama are now what they're promoting. They're not calling it that.
Mhm.
Like, I feel a way about that. They're packaging it in a different way, but it was essentially similar. I mean, Michelle Obama's Let's Move, it was trying to reduce, child obesity. Now 10, 15 years later, we're grappling with these problems and they've gotten worse. So I got to work out that, dare I say, bitterness that I have about the fact that all of that was halted. It was almost sabotaged. So, and we're trying to make the environment easier for us to do the right things. Now
Mhm.
it's not easy. We've got to do all this planning. You feel like you're swimming again upstream just to be able to eat right. The other thing that I worry about is our younger people, because they're gym bros and gym girls and it's all of that. But the eating piece, is
Yes.
something that lacks. And then for some of them, they want to look good, and we're in this Ozempic era, and but they're not. It, it's not just eating, cutting, like you said, cutting out a food group so that you can get snatched. It- it's holistic. You,
Right.
you can't go to the bathroom, or there's foods and vitamins and things for your mind. And they have
Yes.
a lot of issues right now, a lot of high anxiety. So I'm like, how do we get this message out there to them? I mean, even talking to my younger people, and they tune you
Mhm.
out. So I'm like,
Yes.
it has to be a way that we can get the message out that, yeah, you can go to the gym, and but in those bars, that I just went to a gym that's trying to sell me a membership, and it's just all crap in the refrigerators.
Mhm.
I go and I exercise and I do that part, but I'm not really being nurtured. So,
Yes.
it's just so much. We could talk all day about that, but I know we got
Right.
the next the next segment. Next
Yeah.
book was also amazing. So, any more comments out there, producer?
I'll add them on as they come.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So take that, everyone. I highly recommend the book. You can get it from the library, and I think it will be a really great tool to support your journey. Now we're moving into this book called Hood Wellness: Tales of Communal Care from People Who Dried on Dry Land. So, author profile: the author, her name is Tamala Julia Gordon, and she's a freelance writer and book critic and passionate communal care advocate. After several years of relying on online fundraisers for medical and housing needs, she relocated to New York to Miami, where she turned her cozy Havana apartment into a retreat. Through her writing, she strives to uplift and empower others. So, how do I explain this book? This book was really impactful. Like, it had me crying, laughing, it was thought provoking. It's part memoir, so she gets into her personal story of wellness and all the stuff that she dealt with. She grew up in New York, and she dealt with um, disabilities and poverty. And the questions that the book gets into is, what does self care look like when struggling to make ends meet, living with disability, or navigating intersectional marginalization? Part of the reason why I think I was like really wanting to talk about this book is I noticed that when I was in different spaces of the well-being field, it seemed like wellness has a certain image, and it tends to be like, very heavily, you see white women, jogging in a certain size. And I would even be in rooms where, and I pushed back about this in meetings, where the message is, well, marginalized groups need to be healthy. We need to just get them healthy. They need to get to the doctor and get their diabetes under control. They might be dealing with cancer. They're poor, so their focus and their priority is health, not so much wellness. And I'm like, no, that's not true. Everybody deserves well-being. Yes, we may have certain priorities, but how did it get to a point where wellness became associated with maybe wealth or certain populations? And we all deserve it. So this book helps to showcase that. And I've been referring it to people who are in these positions of power in the health and wellness field, so that they can maybe look at their biases, but unconscious, and better understand how wellness is kind of gate kept. What do you think about that concept, Angel? I would love to hear.
I just typed in the comments that everybody deserves wellness. I mean, like Shaquana, that needs to be on a t-shirt, because health, and you and I have spoken about this, healthcare and wellness are used so interchangeably, mistakenly, that it frustrates me, because healthcare and wellness are two different things. And as you said, everybody deserves
Mhm.
wellness. And time again, whether it be on the bottle of a supplement bottle, whether it be a yoga studio, Pilates, this, and this, we always see one demographic, not just racial demographic, but financial demographic.
Yeah.
I'm looking at red light therapy now. That's the big thing.
Mhm.
All you see is one demographic. You're
Mhm.
seeing cold plunges. You're seeing all these things that is always one demographic. And as you said, everyone deserves access to those things, knowledge about how those things can be beneficial. And, not to, belabor your point about the administration. If it is about reducing healthcare costs, my goodness, some of these wellness practices can drastically reduce costs. If it was truly about that, which we know that it is not. And any part of it that is about that in this administration is only to benefit certain people. I was reading an article about, and I'll have to send this to you to share with your listeners, an article about the next wave of population health and all of these wearables. There again, the Aura Ring and all these things, and how, those technologies are going to bridge the gap between health care and wellness. And what the author was saying in that is that somehow or another, with through the use of AI, people will be able to get more contextual data. In other words, if my blood pressure is up now through the use of AI, these are the things I need to do.
Mhm.
I don't see that happening. It said healthcare is way too nuanced and too
Mm.
complex to even think that an AI driven algorithm can put these things in context for people. So, to your point, yes, everybody deserves access to wellness, understanding wellness, and even the cultural competency that comes along with it as well. you
Yeah.
know, like the author of the other book, understanding ashwagandha and these different herbs and things like this. Yoga. We think about yoga as just going to class and doing postures, but there's so much more to yoga that we don't even talk about.
Exactly.
Breath work practices and mindfulness. And I mean, there's just so much. Yoga is a system of medicine. It's not just an exercise, quote unquote, exercise. And we all deserve that. Nobody owns yoga.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I mean, where your listeners, you're hearing this from a yoga practitioner. And do you know, I was in a meeting with a healthcare executive, and she wasn't very familiar with wellness or health. She had a marketing background, a very, very strong marketing background. So she had a very powerful position. And this is where it's it's a thing, because you have people who don't have the background that have the ability to shape practices. And she was saying, oh, the yoga, that shouldn't be promoted for in Black and minority communities. Of course, I had to educate her on why that's not true, because she's
Wow.
looking at it as, she associates it with wealthy white people, wealthy white women. So she didn't think that there were benefits in promoting it. Um, so this is what I'm saying. Like, it's some wrong. People look at wellness and they're not really understanding that everybody deserves it. Another thing that I do in my day job is I manage the well-being rewards program for the company. Well, here's the thing. If you have a commercial health plan, you can get hundreds of dollars a year to buy wearables, join a gym, speak to an, and I love how the company that I work for defines well-being. It's the dimensions. It's mental, it's physical, it's social. And you could take your $600 and go to a concert. So
Oh, wow.
in the claims department, I had to educate them, because they're like, "That's not wellness." I said, "Yes, it is. It's social wellness." So some of them would see these claims come through, and me and my colleague are the ones to yay or nay it. And a big part of my job is helping to draw the link between why wellness isn't just a gym membership. Fine, you want to use it, but no, there's gardening, there's so many things that promote well-being. I love doing jigsaw puzzles. I just bought these really exquisite jigsaw puzzles because for me, that's a very relaxing thing that helps me. So I'm using a part of my benefit to pay for the jigsaw puzzles. We have a question here. There's so much contradictory info on solutions for inner city health and wellness. With food deserts around, what wellness info do you trust?
Well, that's a great question.
Can you answer that, Angel?
Put it back up on the screen, would you mind? Okay, Silva, I'm rocking with your show topic. There's so much contradictory info on solutions for inner city with food deserts around. What wellness info do you trust? You know, Silva, I lean into the evidence-based um, outlets that I have experience with. So sort of like the Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, Rochester Health Systems, is the ones that I know have been around and been doing the work. I'm very, very leery of new pop-up folks who are brand new. Let me just put it that way. You know, I'm a reader, which is why I love this show so much that Shaquana's producing here, because I think the one of the best things we can do is get ourselves back in these libraries, get ourselves attached to book. There you go, books to empower your well-being journey. There's something different about reading. It's one thing to see something on Instagram or YouTube, a pop-up. There's so much misinformation out here. And it's not always, you know, unfortunately, there's some in our own community who are misrepresenting. And so we've got to commit to reading again, to having resources, because many of the better books, like the ones that Shaquan is illustrating this weekend or speaking about this weekend, and the one by the physician is well backed up by, you know, research. I mean, there's articles in there. You get to the back of the book, you now can go and type in the articles. If you're at the library, you can tell the librarian, help me to find the article that she cited in this book. Librarians are a severely underutilized resource in our community. So I would say I would lean into reading, getting back to reading, getting back to the library. And your librarians are always looking for, you know, people who they want to know what you want to know. So you can go to your librarian and say, listen, the question that you just posed, do we have speakers in our community that you can start bringing to the library once a month? Do we have a health educator? 2026, we want to be healthier. Can you all start developing some programs? Librarians love, love, love their community. Librarians are special people, I'm telling you, and they want to know what you want to know. So I say, the biggest thing we can do to empower ourselves is to get back to reading. We're listening, we're hearing, and these are all little sound bites, but there's something different about reading and literacy. And you will see in these books, you will see who's really doing the work. It's one thing for folks who are on TikTok and all this other stuff, but anyone who has taken the time to sit down and write a well thought out book is someone who's probably been doing the work for a minute.
Absolutely. And this book, to your point, this Calm Your Mind, it's about 20 pages of references.
Yes.
From like yeah, it's a lot. This was very extensive, the acknowledgments in it. And then if you go to the physician's website, you'll see. So exactly. There's really, really well written books. I like integrative medicine. It combines the best of both worlds. You're getting the Western, the clinical strong background combined with, especially doctors and clinicians, that they are trained in Western medicine. They also are very much trained in for lack of a better term, Eastern way. So you're getting the best of both worlds, and they're professionals. But I love that idea, Angel, you said about what if, like, throughout the country, libraries hosted health and well-being series, and they brought in local speakers that could come
Yes.
talk about these topics, from mental health to physical. That would be awesome. So I hope that helped you, Silva, and keep the questions coming. I'm going to keep going with the hood wellness. So yeah, this is was a great read. Also, this book. Speaking of libraries, I don't know if you all are familiar with Hoopla, but Hoopla is an app. It's free that you can download, and it's a library app. You put your library number in, and you have access to all these ebooks and audiobooks. And this book is on Hoopla, so you can download it and listen to it. The way that it's divided in three sections, and it's care and body, which goes into the overview. I'll just read. It's dedicated to exploring and unpacking the nuances of wellness with various bodily challenges, experiences, and breakthroughs. So, as you read the stories in section one, consider your relationship with your body, how well it is or isn't received when you step out into the world, and the judgments you make about about the bodies of others. Don't be shocked when your ableism or discrimination rears its ugly head. You'll learn from my testimony that before I could genuinely appreciate my body, I had to stop treating it like an asshole. And what she means by that, in that section, so take what I was saying about everybody deserves wellness. I actually hear clinicians and healthcare executives that are responsible for whole health systems, provider networks, have a mentality that wellness is for the well people, the thin people, the educated, and health, everybody else gets health care. But let's talk about people in mental health institutions. Well, really not, say group homes, the new level of how we manage people who have high mental health challenges. And they might be like in, I have a cousin who's in an institution. They don't really get a lot of like um, attention to their care and body. They get um, medicine, but they don't get that attention to what their needs are, even sexual. So when you hear these stories, because how the book is, what is nice about it is it's her memoir, but interwoven in it, other people contributed stories. There's a story that really had me in tears. It was called A Beauty Worth Admiring, and it's a young man who, when he was a little boy, he was mauled by some pit bulls, and it caused him. He almost died, and he lived, but he ended up being permanently disfigured, and I mean, really, really disfigured. He had to have like 25 surgeries. The part that really snatched me and had me like in tears was how he described the journey of healing and how his mother was with him every step of the way. Oh my God, that you got to hear that story. Another really good one is The Sweetest Sunday Ever Known and I Made a Way. You know, there's stories from BIPOC people from all sorts of walks of life that talk about their bodies, how their bodies are viewed by maybe medical professionals or themselves, and how that impacts their well-being. So that's part one. Then there's part two, which is care and intersectionality. And that's an examination of the ways in which our wellness, liberties, and opportunities are compromised due to our identities. No matter how often society suggests pulling ourselves up by the bootstraps is the cure all for facing adversity, it's a lot more complex for people who navigate marginalized intersections, from finding a decent place to live to pursuing dream jobs and stability. Overlapping oppression and compromises every chance we have at pursuing an American dream. Rather than surrendering to the realities of our oppression, those testimonies in part two examine the nuances and challenges. And I have an example. Earlier this week, I was looking at the LA Times, and they posted an article about this young lady who took, food. They call it food apartheid now. It used to be food deserts, but they're really calling it for what it is, because they said deserts happen naturally. This isn't natural. We choose to have food. Certain groups have access and not. So this woman took it upon herself to start a grocery store. I forgot what it's called, but it's in South Central LA. It's gotten a lot of positive. It gets some celebrities and different people are celebrating it. So someone in the comments said, I don't understand why Black people, minorities, and poor people won't just develop supermarkets. They have these poor areas, just open up a supermarket, so that bootstrap type of conversation. And I didn't have time. Today is a perfect day for me to make the time to make the comment. But I started thinking about Rochester and how Rochester is the home of the infamous Wegmans supermarket, powerful supermarket in the United States. Well, about 10 years ago, maybe a little longer than that, a Whole Foods wanted to come to Rochester. Whole Foods, another powerful supermarket. Do you know that it took about 8 years for Whole Foods to come because of the political bureaucracy? Um, Put it like this: word on the street was that Wegmans was blocking it. I don't know, but they couldn't get open. Finally, it was a powerful, wealthy family called that owned Mario's restaurants that wanted to open a Whole Foods in another wealthy area of Rochester, and they couldn't get it open. It was all kinds of gatekeeping happening. So if that's happening with wealthy people, how can you say that it's as simple as me saying I want to open up a grocery store and it's our fault, or poor people's fault, or Black people, or Hispanic people's fault that they're living in these areas that are food deserts? No. There's powers to be at play, and I'm just so sick of this conversation because it's not accurate. They blocked that, and it finally opened. It's finally open. That area, it's like a suburb. It has a Trader Joe's, a Wegmans, and a Whole Foods in the same area. And then there's parts of the city that just have gas stations. And it's not as simple as the people in the neighborhood want to open up a store and they're just being lazy and they don't have the fortitude. Another thing, I took a leadership program years ago. Wegmans has been around for over 100 years. These are long-term business, and it took a lot of, in the leadership program, they took us to the Wegmans farms and estate, and we heard from the leaders about how they started out. We also know that Wegmans participated in racial covenants. There were a lot of businesses in Monroe County and Rochester in the 50s that participated in these covenants, which made agreements that they would not do business and house Black people. So they put policies in place that gave them a head start in society, and their why they are where they are today. And they had a lot of resourceful and savvy ways that they were able to be resilient. But stop with this argument that it's just as simple as us all opening up a grocery store. And I think that's part of the example of why this section of the book, the intersectionality and how systems block or promote well being was so powerful. Janelle on Twitter says she's an RN while always provides doctor orders. I also offer best food and wellness practices to those willing to listen. That's great, Janelle. I think that's very important, and it's an exciting time. Like Angel was saying, this field is exciting. I know in the company that I work for, there's a couple of people in health promotions that have their MPHs that are going into lifestyle medicine. And there are, to Silva's question about who to trust, there's a curriculum that are developed where they're going to learn about evidence-based information on lifestyle medicine to incorporate into their practices. That's a great example. I don't know where you are in your career journey, but if you want to continue and consider going the route of getting trained in lifestyle medicine, you can incorporate that into your practice. Trust me, it's a need for it. There's more, there is room. There's hundreds of millions of Americans, there's youth, there's room for everybody who's interested in this field because we've got a long ways to go. So and I think we want this. You know, there was a time where it wasn't as wanted. I've been in this field forever, so I know people want to be healthier now. They want well-being now. So I think it's something to consider to continue to build up your professional strength in this field. Keep the comments coming. So I'm going to keep going to review the book themes. I have a clip here that I'd like to show where the author is talking more about hood wellness. Can we show that clip? Oops.
While we're waiting, I have a question for Angel.
I'm here.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I'm here.
do you find Janelle is my homegirl from around the way? I went to high school with her. So shout out to Janelle. She's always supporting the show. Um, in your practice as a nurse, do you come across a lot of politics that prevent you from giving food and wellness best practice information to your patients? Or can you just do that freely without consequence?
That's a great question. And shout out to Janelle for sure. Thank you. I just love the community that we're building here. And to your question about politics, absolutely. You know, all policy is healthcare policy, no matter whether we want to think of it as policy or not, it's all policy, right? So it comes down to what can you, first of all, Shaquana mentioned something earlier about billing practices. So when people know that they can't be compensated for something, they're less inclined to include it in their services. If they know that, oh, there's no ICD code for that or CPT code for that, or it's not going to be a reimbursed. So there's that stuff involved. The beauty of where I am now is that it was too painful for me to keep going along that route of feeling like my hands were bound. in that way that I decided I needed to start my own practice. So for me, it's all lifestyle medicine. It's always been lifestyle medicine. And I lead from that position. I don't have that restriction. The thing is, too, I educate my patients from the gate about the fact that this is an integrative practice. In fact, that's the sign on the door, adult and geriatric integrative medicine. So they know from the gate when they come in the door that this is not just a prescription and see you in 3 weeks. You're going to get some education. And I'm not right for everybody. Some people just listen, all I want is the prescription and I'm out of here. But luckily for me, there are people, like Shaquana said, people want to live, they don't just want to live longer, they want to live better. People want that vitality. People want that strength. They want to be able to say, I'm in my 80s. And I'm going to say, because we're all adults, I'm in my 80s and I'm still having good sex. Okay. You're not going to have that if you've got all these health conditions. Okay. Diabetes affects everything from the top of your head to the toes of your feet. So I make it very crystal clear that this is about longevity here, living longer and living better. But that is the beauty for me as an individual, because I said I can't operate within those restrictions like that. The oh Angel, you can't do that because now it's going to take you 30 minutes and we can't bill for that. No, no, sir. I know a lot of people experience that, but that is the cost that I've been willing to pay and the sacrifice of building something on my own, because I cannot operate within that paradigm. I just can't. I think it's a disservice. I think it's antithetical to what healthcare is supposed to be in the first place. You know.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And
Awesome. So
and unfortunately, to add to what Angel is saying, if you take patients who are on Medicaid, um, there's different billing amounts. So unfortunately, sometimes a large amount of the population, they're going to providers who have a disincentive to be able to give them all the information, because they got to get them in and out, because they're not getting as much reimbursement per patient. But we'll get more
Exactly.
we'll get more into that, because I don't think the public really realizes how much of a medical apartheid is going on because of these different ways that the payment structure is. That was a huge education for me, because I'm like, I'm going to go into a health plan. I'm going to take all that community well-being, that social determinant mindset, take it into the health plan and help influence it. And unfortunately, even the health plans are limited because federal regulation, state regulation. And this stuff can be changed if we push for it more. But there's either a lack, a willful ignorance, and all of that. But it is billing is a lot of it, and people controlling it who aren't as competent in well-being don't get these connections. A lot of that needs to change. It looks like we have the video up, so let's show that.
okay, it's kind of lengthy, so let me know when you want me to stop.
This I want to show it. Or let me see. It
I
we
have the time. I have the timestamp. I just want you. Just tell me if it gets too lengthy.
So
Okay.
you didn't do a Eat, Pray, Love though. Yours is a beg, borrow, heal. So let's talk a
Hmm.
little bit about your journey towards your own personal healing.
Well, as a writer and a New Yorker, I always romanticized that book and that movie. I always looked at my own life like sometime after I get in the New York Times or something, I'll go away and I'll stay there for a while and I'll figure it out. And then I'll go somewhere else. I'll be of the earth, I used to say. Like I'm just gonna just frolic.
Hmm.
Um, and I was getting a little older and I was getting a little older and I just forgot all about it. And then I got in my mid 30s and realized like No, I actually do not want to work at TGI Fridays for the rest of my life.
Right.
I need to hurry up and get to Italy because Liz was in Italy by the time she was like 30. I was like, I'm behind. And I remember reading the book again. I was in my mid 30s and I was just so angry because I
Mm,
realizing like she already had everything. It wasn't, there was no compromise financially. Um, but what I also realized was that she was one of those white women that was just, I wanted to be of the earth. She was
mhm.
lost in the earth.
Right.
Okay. So I didn't need to find myself the way she
Mm,
did. I needed to breathe so the world could get off my neck. And I really believed if I could just get a beat, I get it won't be as luxurious, it won't be as, exotic. But I wanted that experience.
mhm,
And Little Havana was the most tropical, affordable place at the end of the day that I could think of where I could see myself and go to the beach. And unlike, Liz, where my editor is giving me all this money to
mm,
like travel, right? I think she was like a travel writer or something like that. I had to do a fundraiser.
right.
You know what I mean? And that is a different experience. And to be honest, nobody really wants to see you frolicking on the beach when they're
Nope.
helping you pay your rent.
Right. We're like, what?
So,
I pay for you to do what?
okay, right, just acting up. Like they're like, no. So I had to get it together. And the experience is absolutely not like the book. However, I think it still speaks to attainability. And I
Mm,
think it still speaks to what happens when we center those needs. Because
mm,
my needs were water therapy, safe, adequate housing, dental care. I
mm,
found the spot where it most looked like I can get that. And I
mm,
got myself in that spot. I
mm,
used the resources that were available in that area. It wasn't romantic, it wasn't easy, but
right.
it was attainable,
Mm,
And so I think that for us as Black women, our eat, pray, love doesn't necessarily look like finding. It looks like being. You know
mm,
what I mean? It looks like being. It looks like unbothered.
mm,
That was a magical 2 years that I had in Little Havana for all of its ugliness, even during the pandemic and the political woes and my own mental health. All those things included, to that was the only 2 years I can think of when I was really unbothered.
mhm, mm,
I remember waking up and just being like, as long as nothing huge happens in the world today, I know for a fact I'm going to have a good day because
right.
I get to do whatever I want to do today.
Mhm,
After 20 years of being a waitress, that it was a major win. It was a
mm.
major win.
So we can stop
One thing.
the video. I think it was about 4 minutes, but there's a reason why I wanted to show that particular clip. And it's because to me, it nicely personifies how unique and important this book is in terms of a wellness resource. Because as I said, and I know I mentioned this a couple of times in this episode, wellness has a certain curation. It looks like it is for certain groups. And this, the part of the conversation where she was talking about eat, pray, love, it was an example of how, regardless of your station in life, you can achieve not just health but wellness. Like there's a there's a part of the book. It was a story of someone who a woman, a minority woman who was dying of cancer, and how she was able to live out some of her dreams during this stage of her life and almost ending. And that was another touching story. I remember that book, Eat Well, Live, not Eat Well, Eat, Love, Pray, and how it emphasized going away. And, it was a movie and Julia Roberts starred in it. It was really, really heavily pumped to women in the what years was those? I can't remember. Now it's coming out that the author was trying to murder someone. Did anybody hear about that? Who read that book? Angel, did you read Eat, Pray, Love?
did read that book, but I did, I saw something that came out recently about her having severe addiction issues during that time, and that it was more about the addiction recovery and whatnot. But no, I did not hear that. But yes, I did read that book, and I have a lot to. Maybe another show, but
Yeah.
there's so many thoughts about that book. But yeah, I did not know that.
I didn't either. And it says Eat, Pray, Love author reveals personal murder plot. The writer Elizabeth Gilbert considered killing her partner. So
Wow.
so that's it's like wow. But the one it's one good thing that there's a lot of good things that have come from the era we're in. Like even what we're able to do now, like Angels in Maryland. I met her, really dear friend. I used to live in Maryland, Baltimore for 4 years. Now we're here. We can have this conversation online and build community online. And
Yes.
um, but during the time of Eat, Pray, Love, you got a singular vision of who gets to deserve to have their happily ever after well-being. And we're seeing that and we're looking at it like, oh, she went to Italy and she went to Bali and and like that's what the author was saying. You get it in your mind that if I'm not doing it this way, I'm not doing it. Now we're
Yes.
seeing that we might have different needs. Like the dental piece was a huge part of what she needed. She was very transparent in the book about her. She had a very bad oral health issues that caused her to need a complete new set of teeth, and it was
Wow.
devastating. And where can I get that? Where can I get the? So she decided to move to Miami because it was at the time the most affordable way for her to get warmth and safety. So I was like, this makes sense. We don't have to just look at a influencer telling us that we have to do this or go here for our well-being. I love travel, so I'm not saying don't go places, but like identify what you really need. And you might need help with that. Like that's something you do, Angel, through your retreats, right? Can you speak about that?
I was going to ask you this. Does she address in the book? Because here again, I got to add this to my reading list. Does she address the need for, does she address how the relationship between solitude, i.e., retreats, and wellness? And it sounds like she does. And I tell you, having periods of solitude is medicine, good medicine. And we all need that. That too is wellness. Being able to just sit and listen to your own thoughts, to tune out all the incoming information. We cite sounds, invitations, this one that we want to be present for this one and that one. And just having periods where we just say, okay, something, I'm not going to take in any new sensory information. I'm on overload as it is. I need time to just process what I'm feeling, what I know I need, such and such. And so, like you're saying, Shaquana, I'm blown away by this. When I get off, I'm going to have to Google because yes, it created a lot of anxiety amongst many women, particularly Black women, women of color, because we couldn't even think about having time off to go, as I would say, gallivanting all over the world and whatnot. Now and nowadays you see Bali all over the place. Everyone's going to Bali and getting an Airbnb and moving and this and this and the other. But that back then, there was a sense that it generated even a sense of resentment. Here I am taking care of kids and cleaning up and cooking all at 5 days a week. And here's a woman going around the world, and you were grateful for your life. But at the same time, it was just like, how come I can't have that? All that kind of comparison stuff.
Yeah.
And here now, all these years later, we realize it wasn't what it was cracked up to be. But what I encourage women to do, whether it, and all, not just women, but all of us, we need intentional time of solitude, time away for ourselves, even if it's a long weekend. Ideally, if you can get out of your day-to-day environment where there's too much temptation to, oh, let me go fold these clothes, oh, let me go clean the kitchen. It's ideal if you can take a retreat, whether that be retreat be 3 days, 7 days, what have you. Design your own experience. There's lots of different retreats out here and this and this. The problem with a lot of the retreats, as I see it, is they come across as luxury vacations. They're loaded with activities. We're going to see this. We're going to see that. We're going to go over here. We're going to do this and this. And it all sounds great, but you're still just taking in
Yeah.
more. It's like being at a buffet and just eating and eating and eating. There comes a point where you just have to stop taking in so much, and you need that intentional solitude time, you know.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Mhm.
I, I I feel you, and I can't
And
wait.
that is wellness. That's wellness.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yes, and so her section 3, care and community activism. Love that section. It's about the lives, movements, and community that have found ways to advocate and make the world a better place. So that's what makes this book so great. Like I said, it's part memoir, it's part like a anthology because it's other people's stories, it's individual well-being needs, it's the issues that can affect our lives, the intersectionality section, and then it's the example of care and community activism. And she gives examples of like the Me Too movement, Black Lives. One of the stories that I really gained from, and I'm going to show, can we show that slide? It's called Shout Out to Claudette Colvin. And for any of you who don't know who uh, Claudette is, she is a young, at the time, she was rose up communally and fighting against lynching and white supremacy in the 50s. There was a young boy named Jeremiah Reeves who was arrested for rape of a white woman and sentenced to death. He was dating her. He didn't rape the woman, but that was a common tactic back then that Klan people or just white folks would say that black boys were raping their women. Well, anyway, this girl Claudette was a member of the NAACP youth organization, and she refused to move her seat off a bus in Montgomery, Alabama. This was 9 months before Rosa Parks did it. The NAACP strategized by using Rosa Parks because Claudette was from the wrong side of the tracks. She was younger, she wasn't as educated, she didn't have the socioeconomic status, whereas Rosa was the perfect victim. And part of what was talked about in this story is that a lot of times in our history, if someone is victimized by racism or sexism or any type of harm, if they are, if there's any quote unquote flaw about them, that will be weaponized against them. And people will use that as a way to justify their humanity. I remember when Trayvon Martin was killed, this happened with him. And if you all remember, at the time during the trial, he had a friend who got on the stand, and she wasn't the best speaker, but she was like a witness. She was on the phone with him as he was being killed. And society and the lawyers picked apart the way that she talked. And they used that. I mean, there was even black media journalists writing whole articles about her being speaking in Ebonics. And I think Tyler Perry said he was going to pay for her to go to college. It's like, what are we focusing on? So what, she said, ain't. Put it like this. If you see something, or there's a young person, and right outside something happens, and maybe they didn't go to Harvard, does that mean that they didn't see what they saw? It's like a form of gaslighting. But that was a modern day example of how this whole perfect victim is an issue. The NAACP and the people in the that were focusing on civil rights, they were very strategic. So they wanted to use someone who I guess they felt would be undeniable. So they used Rosa Parks as opposed to Claudette. But this story talks about Claudette's life. So I looked up her life to learn more about her. And this article, The Rebellious Life of Mrs. Rosa Parks by Janine Theo Harris, you can learn more about Claudette Colvin's life and the contribution that she made to the civil rights movement. She was friends with Rosa Parks. Rosa did mentor her, and she helped her out after the Colvin would become one of the plaintiffs on the federal case Browder versus Gale, filed in February 1956 during the boycott, which ultimately led to the desegregation of Montgomery buses. So she played a role in Montgomery's desegregation and the civil rights movement. She eventually moved up to New York, and she had a hard time finding jobs because a lot of the work back then was domestic, and she didn't want to just go in anyone's homes because she said, you didn't know, you might be in a KKK's home, you don't know. And if word got out that it was her that was stirring up trouble, she feared for her life. So she ended up going into food service and working and living her life. But it was really like I said, thought provoking because I didn't know Claudette's story. So I got a little bit of that. So you get history, and she connects it to movements that have helped wellness and well being. So I would really say that this is a 4 stars. I like the style. It was part memoir, historical summaries, anthology, but it's threading wellness together. And as I mentioned, I think it's a great book for our own individual wellness, but also for something that could be read in medical schools, nursing, social workers, and even these wellness influencers that are out here as a way to help gain more empathy. I'll stop there. Any comments?
As they come in, I'll let you know.
Okay. Were you familiar, with Claudette Colvin's story?
Are you talking to me? Are you
Yes.
talking? Yeah, I don't know if you remember. I did the Real HD show where we talked about the 4 civil rights heroines that were in the space before Rosa Parks,
Hmm.
and we saluted them, and we celebrated their life and legacy and accomplishments and achievements. And yeah, it. She's the bomb, and
Hmm.
fearless heroine, and love her for it. You know what I mean? It's very much an eye opener when you find out that it was a strategy to put Rosa Parks in that position rather than it actually being her, experience
Yeah.
directly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that there were women who went through that before Rosa Parks
Hmm.
who didn't get the credit that Rosa Parks, was accredited with. So
Exactly. Yeah. And yeah, it's so much to our history. It's so
yeah,
much. And I would say 2 things that connected for me with this this episode with these books, two totally different books. But I feel like once there's two things. One, there's so much about our history that we don't learn and we don't know. And then there's so much about our health information that we don't know because I started off saying you don't realize how much what you're putting in your mouth or not putting in your mouth every day is impacting that mind. And if we could get that education out there more, could we be healthier? Well, it's also understanding our history and how that connects. So what I'll say is we're going to keep this series going. This isn't just a one and done. They will I'll continue to review books into the new year, different well-being books that I've read, and let's keep creating this community here. And I thank you all for participating. I hope you all have a relaxing Saturday during the holiday season. Thank you, Angel. I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday.
Shaquana, I can't thank you and your producing staff I just can't thank you enough for what you are doing. And I just wanted to just echo what you're saying. You did a wonderful job of tying past, present, and future together. I think your first book really shows us a snapshot of the future of medicine and where we are, the history, tying in the history. The only way we can move ourselves forward is to understand where we come from. And I just wanted to just give everyone a little bit of inspiration that though we are in dark times, with this administration and all that we're experiencing, the beauty of our people is our imagination. We have always imagined our way forward, and we can do that again. So if there's anything I can add, it's just that maybe you'll use this season to imagine a new way of being healthy and well in the new year, but also in all the years to come. And we have the gift of imagination
Mm,
because that's why we are here today. Is someone imagined a life for us
mm.
that they would not see.
So, yes, yes. And like you were saying, you need solitude for
Yeah.
imagination. So,
Yep.
it goes back to our kids. Remember, take them off the technology. Let's come off of it. You got to, in order to imagine, you got to be able to just sit for a minute.
Exactly. And that is wellness.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank
Mhm.
you. Thank you.
Any last comments out there, producer?
I think we're ready to lock it up.
Okay. All right. So you all have a great Saturday, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.